20 trades, not 20 wins, not 20 perfect outcomes, 20 perfectly executed trades. 20 times in a row where you followed your process exactly as written. No deviation, no exceptions, no emotional overrides. If you can do that, everything changes. Not because 20 is a magic number, but because 20 consistent repetitions is the minimum threshold for your brain to begin rewiring itself. Today, I'm going to tell you what really happens during those 20 trades, why most traders never reach that point, and what shifts inside you when you finally do. First, understand something critical. Your brain does not learn from understanding, it learns from repetition. You can read every book on trading psychology, watch thousands of videos, and explain risk management perfectly. None of that changes behavior. Intellectual understanding lives in the rational part of your brain, but trading decisions happen in your emotional survival system. That system does not respond to logic. It responds to pattern and repetition. The first 20 consistent trades are not about making money. They're about building new neural pathways. Every time you follow your rule, instead of your impulse, you strengthen discipline. Every time you take the setup, even though you feel fear, you weaken the fear response. Every time you cut a loss without hesitation, you rewire your relationship with pain. Do that 20 times, and discipline stops being a fight and starts becoming normal. Not easy. Normal. Meet Ryan. Ryan understood risk management. He could explain it perfectly. 1% per trade, stop loss always placed, never move it. He knew the rules, but knowing and doing are not the same. His first rule-based trade felt wrong. His second felt worse. By the fifth, he was exhausted from fighting himself. His brain screamed at him to move the stop, to give it more room, to let it come back. But he didn't listen. By the 10th trade, he was still fighting the urge. By the 15th, the voice was quieter. On the 20th trade, something shifted. The fight wasn't there anymore. Following the rule didn't feel heroic. It just felt standard. That was rewiring. He realized every decision is a wiring decision. Every trade strengthens one of two identities, the impulsive trader or the disciplined one. Now let's talk about the pain. Those first 20 trades hurt. Not necessarily because you're losing money, but because you're fighting your instincts. Your brain hates change and hates uncertainty. When you act against old programming, your mind pushes back with anxiety, doubt, and the overwhelming sense that something is wrong. Most traders interpret that discomfort as proof their system is broken. If it feels bad, it must be wrong. So they quit, switch strategies, and start over. The cycle repeats, but the discomfort isn't a flaw. It's proof that growth is happening. Meet Sophia. Her first 10 rule-based trades felt terrible. She felt nauseous before entering, second-guessed every decision, and replayed trades at night in her head. She thought she wasn't cut out for trading. But she kept going. By the 15th trade, the discomfort was weaker. By the 18th, the nausea was gone. By the 20th, she felt calm. The turbulence wasn't failure, it was adaptation. Once she understood that, she stopped interpreting discomfort as danger. She saw it as progress. Here's why most traders never reach 20 consistent trades. They keep resetting the counter. 5 trades with strategy A. It doesn't feel right, so they switch. 7 trades with strategy B. Not fast enough, so they switch. 3 trades with strategy C. Lost money, so they switch again. Years go by. Hundreds of trades, but never 20 consecutive executions with the same system. Without repetition, the brain never rewires. They stay stuck in the beginner loop, always starting over, always chasing the next method, never building execution muscle. And here's something uncomfortable. When I first became truly disciplined in trading, something strange happened. I stopped enjoying it. Everything became clear. How many trades I would take, where I would exit, how much I would risk. There were no surprises anymore, and I realized something painful. For years, I wasn't addicted to trading. I was addicted to uncertainty. I was addicted to the emotional roller coaster. When rules removed the chaos, the excitement disappeared. Trading became boring, and that's when it became professional. Real trading is not emotional entertainment. It's structured repetition. When the gambling sensation dies, discipline takes over. That shift can feel like loss until you understand what you gained. You gained control. And then something quiet begins to happen. The 21st trade feels different. You expect fireworks, you expect confidence to explode, you expect some grand emotional shift. But what actually happens is far more subtle. The excitement fades, the fear softens. A win comes in and it does not create a rush. A loss hits and it does not create devastation. And if you are not prepared for this moment, you might misinterpret it. You might think you have lost your edge. You might think you have become numb. But nothing is wrong. This is emotional neutralization. For years, trading felt intense because your nervous system treated every trade like survival. Every tick up was validation. Every tick down was threat. But after 20 consistent executions, your brain begins to understand something new. A trade is not life or death. It is a single event in a long statistical series. The spikes flatten. Meet Alex. After his 20th consistent trade, a winner closed in profit. He checked the P&L, confirmed the gain, and felt nothing. No celebration, no rush, just information. Later that week, a stop loss was hit. He closed the trade exactly as planned. Again, nothing, no anger, no replaying it in his head, just execution. At first, he questioned himself. Was he burned out? Was he losing passion? But what had actually happened was mastery. His brain had stopped attaching identity to outcome. The trade was no longer personal, it was procedural, and that leads to something even deeper. Before those 20 trades, every loss feels like punishment, like the market is correcting you, like you failed. You search for what you did wrong, you replay the entry, you question yourself. But after 20 consistent executions, loss changes category. It becomes cost. You do not get emotional when you pay rent. You do not panic when you buy inventory for a business. It is simply the price of operation. In the same way, a stop loss becomes the agreed price you pay to find out whether your idea works. Meet Maya. Before her 20 trades, every stop felt heavy. She would stare at the chart afterward, wonder if she exited too soon, wonder if she could have avoided it. After the 20th execution, something shifted. She entered a trade, set her stop. The stop was hit, she closed it and moved on. No emotional residue. When someone asked her how she wasn't upset, she said, "I knew the cost. Before I entered, the loss wasn't a surprise. It was the fee I agreed to pay." That is mathematical acceptance. And once you reach it, you stop fighting risk. You stop avoiding loss. You stop moving stops to protect your ego. Loss is no longer an attack on you. It is math. And slowly, something else changes. Pattern recognition becomes effortless. In the beginning, every trade requires analysis. You check each rule manually, you reread your plan, you question your interpretation. It feels like sounding out letters when learning to read. Slow, mechanical, effortful, but repetition creates fluency. After enough consistent trades, you stop reading letters. You see the word instantly. In trading, that means you look at the chart and you simply recognize your setup, not from intuition, from encoded repetition. Meet Jordan. His first 10 trades required almost an hour of confirmation before entry. He would reread his criteria, compare conditions, hesitate. By the 20th trade, something changed. The setup appeared. He looked at the chart for 2 seconds, entered, managed, done. Not because he became reckless, because his brain had encoded the pattern. He was no longer analyzing each piece individually. He was recognizing the whole. But understand this clearly. Fear does not disappear. Greed does not vanish. Doubt does not evaporate. The difference is authority. Before rewiring, emotion decides. Fear tells you not to take the trade, and you obey. Greed tells you to hold longer, and you obey. Emotion has veto power. After repetition, emotion still whispers. But it no longer commands. It becomes background noise. Meet Chris. On his 23rd trade, his setup appeared, his stomach tightened, his hands felt slightly tense. Fear was present, but he executed anyway. Not because he was fearless, because the rule had authority. The fear was a passenger. It no longer drove the car. That demotion is the shift. Professionals still feel emotion. They simply do not grant it decision-making power, and with that shift comes independence. Before 20 consistent trades, you seek reassurance. You ask others what they think. You compare your results. You look for confirmation. You need someone to tell you that you are doing it correctly. After 20 consecutive executions, something quiet builds inside you. You kept your word to yourself 20 times. You proved you can follow through. That internal evidence reduces the need for external validation. Meet Taylor. Before reaching 20 trades, constantly posting charts, asking for opinions, seeking reassurance in groups. After the 20th execution, silence, not arrogance, certainty. The system will reveal itself over a large sample size. No outside opinion can accelerate that process. The noise fades because internal trust replaces it. And this is where true confidence is built. Confidence does not come from winning. Winning gives temporary highs. Confidence comes from integrity, from doing what you said you would do. Every time you commit to your plan and execute it without compromise, you build self-trust. Every time you break your rule, you erode it. Meet Morgan. For years, Morgan thought confidence would come from a large payout. It never lasted, but after 20 consistent trades, something changed. Not because of profit, because of consistency. Morgan had kept a promise 20 times in a row. That built self-respect. And self-respect is the foundation of real confidence, not belief in predictions, belief in behavior. And now the final truth reveals itself. The perfect system does not win. The perfect executor wins. You can have the highest win rate strategy in the world, the most beautiful backtest, the most optimized rules. If you cannot execute it consistently, it is worthless. Execution beats strategy every time, and execution is not talent. It is trained repetition. Meet Sam. Sam optimized a strategy for years, 10 years of data, strong metrics. On paper, exceptional. But in live markets, Sam moved stops, entered early, cut winners short. The system was solid, the execution was not. Meanwhile, Jaime traded a simpler strategy. Nothing impressive statistically, but Jaime executed flawlessly, no deviation. Over time, Jaime made money. Sam did not, because the edge was never the system. The edge was the ability to execute it without compromise. And that ability begins with 20 consistent trades. Everything changes after 20 executions. Not because the market changes, because you change. Your brain rewires. Pain stops meaning danger. Loss becomes math. Patterns become fluent. Emotions lose authority. Validation becomes unnecessary. Self-trust strengthens. Execution becomes automatic. 20 trades, not 20 wins. Not perfection. 20 times where you kept your word. Most traders fail not because they lack knowledge, but because they never build the internal infrastructure that makes discipline automatic. They search for a better system instead of becoming a better executor. Stop searching, choose your strategy, simplify your rules, and commit. 20 trades, no exceptions.